Hi, this is Cheryl for Bear's Pampered Stampers. Today I want to talk to you again about flowers. A couple of weeks ago we looked at some super simple flowers and the Sizzix sculpting foam, which was so cool. And today I want to go a little more advanced, although stay really simple with flowers. I've used 3 different materials to create flowers for my cards. This is paper, this is the Sizzix sculpting foam, and this is felt. So different materials, similar looks, they mix and match so beautifully. Let's look at some of the things that I used to create today's card. First of all, let's start with the star of the show, which is this basket. It's a Sunny Studios stamp and die set. So here's the stamp set. It's got 4 different basket images. And so you guessed it, the basket is stamped 4 times with 4 different inks. Remember your Altenew ink cubes, they're perfect for this. I used the brown set that Melissa carries. And so you're just going to start with your lightest color here with the most stamped image. Stamp that first, move to this one, and finally end up with this one with your darkest color. So always lightest to darkest. And the darker you get with your ink, the less image you will have to stamp. These are really just accents here. When I finished stamping, I cut it out using the matching die. Here it is on the back here. I always store them together so I don't lose things. So you can see the basket shape. You also get the word spring. And there's a little die that'll cut out the ladybug, which is also a part of the set here. And they're really cute when they're done. There's some motion stamps here for your ladybug if you choose to use those. Now, once I cut my basket out, I had a little bit of white area around. I didn't want to see that show, so I just grabbed my 2 lightest colors and a finger dauber and went ahead around the outside and covered those white edges. And so I have a full basket. I love the way it turned out. You can almost see that weave going on there. It almost jumps out at you. So beautiful, beautiful dimensional finish for my card here. The background paper too, I'll point out while I'm here, is some of that Spiffy Speckles from Fawn. I like how it's really a solid white, but the little bit of pink just ties in with my pink flowers in the basket. So it turned out good. Next, I wanted to cut my flowers. I picked a flower set that's been in the shop for a while. Ugly, ugly picture, pardon my attitude, but beautiful die set to work with. You have a lot of different shapes and sizes and everything here, so it's a great set to work with to make flowers. There's a leaf included, which is all you really need. So that's what I used primarily for my flowers. I also grabbed 2 older sets, and I apologize, these are no longer available. They're from Tailored Expressions because I wanted some really small dies to show you that all of these materials can also be cut with the teeny tiny stuff. So whatever size you want to use, I'm pretty confident you can do it. I'm not advocating making a lot of teeny flowers like this, but sometimes you need them. And if you need them, it's better to be able to make them yourself from your scraps than to have to go to a craft store and buy them because they get expensive. You know that. You see them with a little rhinestone in the center, a little pearl something. You can do that. It's very simple. So again, I used my 3 materials to cut everything out with no problem. This is paper. Up top you can see the felt cut. This is also felt. This is the Sizzix sculpting foam in my little teeny tinies, which all came out in perfect detail. I've got paper at the bottom, in the middle the sculpting foam, and at the top the felt. I didn't lose any detail. Same with this, the felt one. Says it all. It's all there. It's not fuzzy. It's good to go. Here I've cut, this is actually the sculpting foam, so it gave me all the details of the cut. Basically a circle with little fringe around it. This is felt. It didn't hold that detail so well. So that will happen. Unfortunately, with felt, it's not capable of the little teeny tiny cuts as well, but it can do almost everything else. I didn't have green felt to cut leaves, so I used the paper for that. I used the green foam to cut leaves with no problem. They cut perfectly. I got my little vein dimension on those as well. These two happen to be paper. For the felt that I used, let me just say that I used something other than the normal stuff you buy at the craft store for about 35 cents a sheet. This has some wool content, so it's a little thicker. It has some oomph and some structure to it. It cuts much, much easier. If you use the plasticky stuff from the craft store, a lot of times it can't handle the detail. Sometimes it's too thin or it pulls. It's a little more plasticky than what you'd hope for. And so invest in the craft felt for these kinds of projects and you'll have a much happier time. I just had 2 colors, so I used the 2 colors I had of this. With the foam, I used the 2 colors that were in the package. So I think these 2 were the ones that I used, these 2 right here. With the foam, you're just limited to what you buy. So there's 5 different boxes. Each has 5 colors. Pick the ones you like or grab multiple boxes. That's what I did. Because I love this stuff. It makes really, really cool flowers. Now for my paper, I had the most variety. I actually grabbed 5 different pinks to make my petals. It just gives me variety, which is kind of cool in building flowers. I had 4 or 5 different greens going on here. When I cut the flowers out of paper, first of all, I cut multiples. There's no reason these dies can't handle 2 or 3 layers of paper at a time. You check with your machine, check with the paper that you're using, see what you can cut, but you still preserve the detail in all of them. Always cut extra and save them. Next time I need pink flowers, I don't have to cut. I have plenty left over here from this project. So grab yourself some extras. Maybe on an afternoon when you want to craft and don't really have something in mind, make some extra flowers. You can make up the flowers and add the finished flower to your project when you're ready for it. So you have lots of choices. So cutting was a breeze in terms of getting through all of these different materials, again, with the one exception of the little tiny fringe on the felt. It's cut, but it just doesn't show. If I wanted to, oh, sorry, I'm off camera. If I wanted to represent that in felt, I would just grab a needle and thread and stitch that detail in. So you can see on the paper and the craft foam, I do get the fringe detail. All of them need to be, in my opinion, edged with some ink. I always pick one ink color regardless of the number of colors of paper or foam or whatever I'm using. It doesn't necessarily have to be a matchy color. This is kind of a blue-green ink from Altenew, and it works. So I just go ahead and add a little ink at the edges, sponge a little in the center. What I'm really after here is to try and highlight those stem details that we saw coming out with the die. It's a little harder to do. Sorry, I can't pick this up for whatever reason. The little snotty thing is staying down there. What I want to do is get this vein detail, and it's just really hard to just pick that up with even a small item like a sponge dauber and not get other things. But I definitely go around the edges, add a little bit toward the center. If I wanted to fuss with this leaf, I could get a leaf detailer and enhance those veins, or a marker and enhance the marking, but I'm not going to worry about that. So again, I use the same color ink with both colors of paper, same color ink on my foams too. You just don't have to mess with a lot here. Same thing with the flowers. With the flowers, I don't worry too much about the center because the center is either going to get covered up with another layer or it's going to get covered with a stamen or something like that. So you don't need to fuss with it. I just typically go around the edges. I'm not particular about it. If you look at flowers in nature, there's some additional color to them. They're not one solid color, but they're also not perfectly colored. So it's always the edge or always the center or whatever. So you can just do it a little rough justice, give it a little interest, and move on. Again, use the same color for each of the materials, each of the colors that you use, the same color of ink. For the materials, same thing. This is felt up here. This ink works just fine to add a little color and interest to my felt. This is craft foam. I can use the ink to add a little color to that as well. So I'm doing this quick. I'm doing rough justice and moving on. Same thing with the little pieces. When I'm using them, I use a little bit of ink to add color. I don't worry so much about the littles. There's not much to them. While we're here, you can see that this die cuts a hole in the center of each of the flowers, so it makes it super easy to use with stamens. If you have, it even works through the felt, which I know it's hard to see here because it didn't pop out, but there we go. Pop the center out of that. So the felt, the foam, all would have the center hole. My littles don't have a center hole cut in. If I want to add a stamen to them, I do need a hole. And so what I do is I use a pokey tool, something with a point to go through the center of those and make a little hole to use with my stamen. So I've got them colored. The next thing you have to consider is whether you're going to shape. If you're using the craft foam, or the sculpting foam, sorry, you know that that's a simple shape. You grab your heat tool and go at it. For these with the stamens, I did each layer separately. So I grabbed this little piece first, added heat, curled it up, added heat to this back layer, curled it up, curled up my leaves. It all worked out just fine. You can see I even over curled a little bit down here, but it's kind of hard to just mess these things up because even that I'll use. In nature, you'll see some flowers that are a little bit more curly than others, and it's okay. Felt doesn't hold shape real well unless you get heat and water and curling and a lot of things like that involved. So I left it go as it was. But you can see in this flower, it's kind of doing its own thing. I didn't have green felt, so I used paper leaves. The leaves are making it kind of curl up a little bit. So it just looks cool on its own, and I don't miss the shaping. I have a little bit of shaping here on my paper, and let me show you how I did that. Don't freak out too much on me because it's super easy to do. So if you have a mat, use your mat for flower shaping. Otherwise, just put it in the palm of your hand and go from there. I have a stylus here. I happen to have a big one. Use what you have. This one's going to be really hard to use because that's the biggest end and it's tiny. So use something that's a little bigger but maybe smaller than this. And you're just going to pull in from the edge to the center. And you can see how that starts to curl up a little bit. Again, super easy motions. I'm going to take the stylus into the center and just stir a little bit. And I have a shaped flower. I didn't have to work hard for it. I didn't have to wet it or anything else. It's good to go. So you're going to shape your pieces to work out that way. I'm just going to grab another piece here for my center and go ahead and shape it. Now it's got these tiny little pieces coming out. I'm not going to bother with those. I'm just going to go straight to the center and stir. And there you have it. Super, super easy. I didn't need anything more than a stylus in my hand. So don't worry about that too much. Again, be sure and color them first. You won't want to color them after they're shaped or you're going to reshape. For your leaves, I usually just start at the tip and move in. It's moving on me. It hasn't done this all day, so I don't know why. If you find your stylus is dragging a little bit, go ahead and run it over a little wax paper, and that'll make it run smoother with the paper. Again, I want to go from point to center and just add a little dimension. You can push these down and reshape them a little bit as you work with the flower. You want to start that way. For stamens, I usually just get a bundle of white or any other lighter color. Any color really works. Usually you don't want to undo them. That will create chaos as all the stamens go flying. But if you pull one out, what you see is a string with two ends on it. You can color these any color you want using an alcohol ink marker. I've got a Copic here. A Sharpie works very well for this. So you can color the string. You can color the tip. All of that works. Alcohol ink dries really, really fast. So you usually don't have to worry about getting it all over your fingers and stuff. I will say sometimes the string takes a little bit longer than the tip to dry, but it's all good. It's going to dry pretty quickly and you won't have an issue. Probably the hardest thing is trying to get to all sides of it. So just go ahead and color it. If you needed to color a bunch of them, you could, for example, put a bunch, like 5 or 6 stamens in a plastic bag and add a drop of alcohol ink and shake it around, and that will take care of coloring for you. So I've got my stamen colored from white. Oops, I didn't do a very good job there. Let me just go back and fix this side that I just totally missed. Harder to do up in the air than it is laying it flat, but it works out. Again, any white spots you see are just my imperfection in doing it. It's not that the color is coming off, because it really does dry that quickly. It's just kind of hard to see on camera what I'm doing. So once I've got the color that I want, you go ahead and fold it in half. This string is not stiff at all, so it's like working with a string that's going to go every which way. But I try and get the best fold that I can in the center so that I can pass it through the layers fairly easily. You do want to have your centers punched out. So I went ahead and punched this one. Red is not the color I would pick for stamens for this. I just grabbed a marker quickly and that's what I ended up with. Sorry about that. So go ahead and pass the loop at the end through the hole. And again, you have to be able to see a little better what you're doing. It's very simple to do. I have a camera between my face and my hands, so it's hard for me to see where the string is going. And being string, it just wants to go every which way. And is not in the mood to give me a break today. This is my video problem for today. You know I always have one. Sorry guys, let me just take it off camera for a minute and stick it through the hole where I can see. And then you won't have to watch me for endless period of time sticking it through. So that's all I'm doing, sticking it through layer by layer. You can see when I push this back up, I'm going to regain my dimensions, so don't worry about having lost that. I often keep the stamens a little offset so they're not necessarily together. If I want to keep some separation between this layer and the next, you can put a glue dot or a little dot of hot glue there, and that'll keep them apart a little bit, or you can just keep stringing them together. And once again, I'm going to try taking this off camera just so that I can get it done quickly and not belabor the point here. And I'm failing it miserably at this too. I apologize. This is not a hard process, but every once in a while you get a stamen that just has a mind of its own. There we go. So those two are together. Our leaves even have holes in the end, so we can add those. Otherwise, I would just use a glue dot, a little bit of glue, or hot glue to hold them in place. So whatever you like to work with, you can use for this process. It's just a matter at this point of stringing things through the holes. Once you get to the very back, and I don't have my hole open on this one. Once you get to the very back, you do want to use a little bit of a glue dot or some hot glue or something just to hold the stamens back in place. And you can just kind of fold them and hide them on the back. So you'll have that long string left over. I typically just make a little circle, and I didn't bring a glue dot over, but use a glue dot to hold that string in place, and that'll keep the stamen intact, and you can move on with your flower. So really simple to use the stamens. Similar to you can use the stamen for any of the materials that I use, the felt, the foam, the paper, all of that, same process. This one I used an enamel dot. I'm not sure whether there are any right now, but Melissa carries these from time to time, the Hero Hues or any other brand of them. They work. You can even buy the clear ones and use your Copic or Sharpie to color those. Just make sure they're not iridescent. There's something in the iridescent coating that it won't accept the alcohol ink. So that's how I got my stamens in the center of my flowers. Super easy. With my foam, I heated and curled each layer separately. So like the paper, I did like this top pink layer, the darker colors separately, the leaf separately, and then I put them together with the stamens. I did a little shaping on the pieces of foam that were the tiny flowers. There's one there. This one, you don't see it as much because they're kind of tucked in and that sort of thing. This one I overheated a little bit. You can see it's kind of curly, but it still makes for a cute flower. So I don't feel like there's any waste in this process. So again, easy process. Once you get your flowers done, go about arranging them. I used some of the littles in between. I was cutting them anyway to show you cutting was possible. So I just threw them in between as filler as opposed to adding more big ones. And then, you know, it just adds a little interest too when you see them around the basket. So a super easy project. There are lots and lots of fun flower dies at the store. I also want to call out two sets that are by Teresa Collins. One is Magnolia, the other is Clematis. You've seen me do the Magnolia before. That was the gift bag one that I did with the first flower foam video. The Clematis is this one. I think this is a perfect shape to do succulents. I ran out of time, but all you got to do is cut your green foam, add a little bit of purple or pink around the edge, and then go ahead and let them curl gently, and you'll be good to go. Also in the store is this pretty Sizzix Die. This one is actually fairly big, so if you're looking for those package decorations, this is a larger peony, but it's going to give you a great effect till it gets done with the foam or the paper or whatever. Shaping up, again, just do your simple shaping, and you're good to go. What else can you use as stamens? We looked at stamens. We looked at the enamel dot. Melissa also carries a product called Prills. They come in a jar like this. I'm going to open it up. And you can see, you can hear them crunching because they're tiny and they just sort of escape every time you open up. But they're various sizes. So whether you use a handful of prills in your center, just use them with glue. There we go, we've got focus. Or pick out one or two and glue them in. It's just kind of a cool effect. So these make for great flower centers as well. Rhinestones, pearls, anything you can imagine can be used as a flower center. And then depending on the flower that you're using, sometimes they'll give you a circle or something that you cut out that's intended to use as a center. But you do what you think is fun. Mix and match your flowers. Have fun with them. You can see there's several different styles in this package, which is why I really like this one. From the kind of stameny one here to the small petals here to the very broad petals that you can see right here. There's a lot to work with. And so when I go through my pile here and want to build other flowers, it's just easy. I have colors to choose from. I have different sizes. Trying to get something different here. Here we go. I can do 2 layers. I can do 3 layers. I can do 4 or 5 layers. It's all up to you. What do you like? I can use similars and just pick the ones like this that are a similar flower, just different sizes. So for example, this one with maybe a darker center, or maybe I want to layer a couple of these together first before I add that darker center. It's all up to you. Have fun with them. Flowers are great. They make perfect spring cards. Everybody loves to see the flowers coming. So again, check back at the shop, see what is going on with the flower dies. I know this one is there. I know that you'll like this one. Again, the littles that I used from Tailored are not currently available. She has discontinued those, unfortunately. Tailored, not Melissa. So that's the way it goes. But you'll find other small dies and punches that you could use to make those small flowers. Now, one bonus thing, I grabbed this Sizzix Butterfly set. And I made some butterflies out of the foam because I just love the foam and how it curls and makes some cute stuff. So I cut this out of the fun foam. I edged them all with ink again because I think the ink just adds so much to this very plain and sometimes funny colors of foam. I put 2 layers together with a glue dot just in the center. That's why you see some mismatching and some layers standing up. I know that's not normal for butterflies. I'm going to switch this one out for this one. But they turned out pretty cool. I went ahead at that point and used my heat. So I had them glue dotted together, the 2 layers. Used the heat to go ahead and curl them up a little bit. Again, I kept the curling fairly small because I didn't want to see a ton of curling with this. And then I used Stamens to add the antenna. And I thought that was really a cute look too. So I love the way the foam separated, it popped up. It just made for some really fun butterflies. So not traditional colors, but a blast. So think creatively about how you can use the foam. It's only limited by your imagination. Experiment with it a little bit. Pick up some more colors because I know once you try it and you have fun using it, it's hard to resist all the colors because they're just, it gives you so much versatility to work with. You can color it easily with inks and that sort of thing. So it's a fun medium to use. So flowers and butterflies, my message for today. Have fun with them. Use different materials. Again, don't buy the expensive stuff from the craft store anymore. Use your leftover supplies and have a blast. Thanks for watching. Bye.